Hey, sixth graders. Today we're going to continue looking at percents. If you remember from our last lesson, we learned that percent or percentage means out of 100. Remember, we looked at the fact that percent has that word cent, and there are 100 cents in a dollar. It all comes from that Greek word, which means 100. So today we're going to continue looking at how do I find a percent of a whole number. Let's look at our problem. A school held several evening activities last month. A music concert, which reminds me, tonight is orchestra, tomorrow is band. Good luck, guys, you'll do awesome. A basketball game, a drama play, and literacy night. The music concert was attended by 250 people. How many people came to each of the other activities? Number 1, attendance at the basketball game was 30% of the attendance at the concert. Number 2, attendance at the drama play was 140% of the attendance at the concert. And number 3, attendance at literacy night was 44% attendance at the concert. I'm noticing a trend. Remember how we look for those patterns as mathematicians? I'm noticing that they keep referring back to the attendance at the concert. So that tells me that the attendance at the music concert is our whole amount that we're finding different percentages of. Remember, the whole amount is 100%. So 100% of the people that attended the music concert is 250 people. Now that I know that, I'm going to use that information to help me scale either down or up to different percentages. First one up, attendance at the basketball game was 30%. Reminds me of a problem that we had in our previous lesson, where we also had to scale from 30 to 100. Do you remember if that was possible? It wasn't. We very quickly figured out if I count by 30s, 30, 60, 90, 120, I'm never going to say 100. So we figured out I have to scale down to a different number other than 30. Do you remember what number it was? If you remembered that we had to scale down to 10, you were correct. If I scale down to 10, 10 and counting by tens gets me to 30. It gets me to 100 because I know there are 10 groups of 10 in 100. And if I'm looking ahead, it can even get me to 140 because I know there are 14 groups of 10 in 140. So we're going to scale down to 10. How do I do that? I'm going to figure out that multiplicative relationship. What do I multiply or divide 100 by to get to 10? Well, if I don't know my math facts really well, I can also ask myself, how many groups of 10 are in 100? I know there are 10 groups of 10 in 100. So that tells me that dividing 100 into 10 groups gets me to that 10. So 100 divided by 10 is 10. Because it's an equivalent ratio, I have to do the same on the top. 250 divided by 10 is going to get me my answer to 10%. We've done some problems earlier where we had to divide numbers by 10. Remember, we had that mental warm-up, and we quickly figured out that dividing a number by 10 means that I adjust the decimal place one place value to the left. Well, my decimal is at the very end of my number, even though we don't normally write it there. It's there. It's that invisible math. So if my decimal point is after the 0, to adjust it one place value to the left means that 250 divided by 10 is 25. Now that I know what 10% is, I can use that to help me count up. Now I could count up by 25s all the way down the line. 25, 50, 75, 100, 125, etc. I absolutely can do that. That's a very valid method, but it takes a long time. So maybe instead of counting by 25s tediously all the way down the line, I again can look for that multiplicative relationship. 10 to 30, I know there are 3 10s in 30, so I'm going to multiply by 3. 25 times 3 gets me to 75. Okay, I don't want to have to count all the way down to 140. So instead, I'm going to say 10 to 140. How many groups of 10 are there in 140? You guessed it. There are 14. So if I know there are 14 groups of 10 in 140, that means I have to take my 25, and I also have to multiply it by 14 to get 140% of 250. 14 times 25, if I use my trusty calculator, I find out that that is 350. Okay. So I've just answered the first two questions. 30%, I know, is 75 people. 140, we just figured out, was 350 people. Now I have to figure out 44%. Ooh, there's a problem. 44% isn't on my double number line. And in fact, if I scale down to tens, and I figure out that 10% is 25, by counting up by tens, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, I never actually say 44. Because 44 falls in the middle. That tells me I can't scale down to 10 to get to 44. So is there another number that I could use to scale down from 30 or 100 and then back up to 44? There's one number that I know goes into every other number no matter what it is. There is one number that I can count by and say every other number in existence. Do you know what it is? If you said 1, you are absolutely correct. I'm going to find 1%. Well, in order to find 1%, I could either scale down from 100, because I know that there are 100 ones in 100. But that's a lot of numbers to do 250 divided by 100. So I'm going to start with 10. Now I know I can scale down from 10 to 1 because there are 10 ones in the whole number 10. So 10 divided by 10 is what gets me 1. Have to do the same here. 25 divided by 10. Ooh, there's that division of 10 again. Remember, when you divide by 10, you move that decimal, which is at the end of my answer, in one place value. So 25 divided by 10 is going to get me 2.5. Now that I know that 1% is 2.5, I can scale up to 44. So I'm going to ask myself, how many ones are in 44? Well, there are 44 of them. So I'm going to take my 2.5, and I'm going to say 2.5 times 44 is going to get me my answer. Let me do some quick math over here. 2.5 times 44. Pause here and work it out on your own workbook. By doing the math, I figure out that 44% is the same as 2.5 times 44, which is 110. So 44% of 250 is 110. Double number lines are awesome in terms of helping us figure out percents of a number, because percents are predictable. I can scale down to 10. I can scale down to 1. But we also know of another way to do it. I can also use ratio tables. Ratio tables work the same with percents as they do with regular ratios. I know 100% was 250. I'm finding 30%. Oh, but wait, we know we can't go from 30 to 100. So I'm going to scale down to 10. And I know that 100 divided by 10 gets me to my answer. So I'm going to do 250 divided by 10 to get 25. Now that I know that, I can scale up. 10 times 3 gets me 30. 25 times 3 gets me 75. I can now look at my next number, and I can say 140. Well, again, I can scale from 10 to 140 by multiplying by 14. So 25 times 14, we figured out was 350. The last number is 44. But we figured out with our double number line, I can't count by 30s to get to 44. I can't count by 10s to get to 44. I can't divide 140 by anything to get 44. So I'm going to have to find a different number than 44. I'm going to scale down all the way down to 1. And I know that 10 to 1 means I'm dividing by 10. So 25 divided by 10 is going to give me 2.5. And then from that is when I can scale up to 44. So 2.5 times 44 gets me to 110. Now it's going to be your turn to do some thinking on the problems you're going to tackle as a group. Please turn in your workbook to activity 15.3. Here's where you're going